I want to show you how the new Privacy Suite integration works, how you get it functional in your system, and hopefully get you to also make use of it across your extensions. Okay, so first thing to do is to actually get JCB as a mapped component set up in your environment. If this is not doable, maybe you're having a small computer, you don't have enough processing power, memory to pull in that file, which probably is the case with some of you, then there is an alternative, but I'm first going to show you how to do this through the importing of a JCB package, and then we'll look at the option of doing it manually. So first thing first, we go to VDM packages and we select component builder. Now the reason we do is because component builder currently is exported with, okay, this is wrong, it should be 5. Let's click this refresh button here so we can get a refresh version. So we try again, click at JCB, there we go. So we've got 5 there, that's the one you want, 2.10.5, and first you'll have it pulled from the repository, and then once it's there in your system, you must validate the hash, of course. So here we go, we've got the hash number here. You open this file. This is important. You know, there's a lot of routers and a lot of hops for that package from GitHub to your system, and you want to make sure that people didn't tamper with it on the way. And so opening this link should have a valid secure connection, and then that key that you see there must be the same key that you see here. That's the closest we've come to secure this. I know there are maybe some far more advanced means, but this is where we're at. Okay, so next thing, you get the key from us, right? If you don't have it, you click on this link here, get the key from Vast Development Method, and it will guide you on how to do that. We then place the key in here. We say force local update. This will basically update your system down to the file type, everything that is also part of the Joomla component builder package. So here we have that package, and you can see the source code is of course on GitHub, and so we click continue. This usually would take a while, but I know that if your computer or the server you're running this on doesn't have enough memory, it will fail, because it is a huge task of what is happening right now. And I know that I've picked this up over the process of helping others. I'm running an i7 system here as a processor, and as memory I'm close to the vicinity of 32 gigs. So it's a big system. It's where I usually work, and so I've not always been aware of all these limitations, and so I pick it up from time to time when I hear other people having difficulties with these things. But that's my local developing environment, and I think if you're really serious about programming, probably you'll have to think of, you know, upgrading your infrastructure. Okay, we've got our package imported, and at this point you should see component builder as one of your components, and it would have imported it a lot of information in terms of fields and custom gets and custom codes and templates and stuff. Okay, so you could look at those, it's quite informative. The area I want you to go to is Joomla Plugins. basically this global privacy plugin is also being distributed for free with JCB. And this is the first plugin, or rather the first step in requirements for any component to make use of privacy. So let's quickly go into this. For those of you who want to do it manually, there is of course that option. So we'll open the plugin and you'll see, if you can stop the video of course and see the settings that's set here. It's set to the extents, the privacy plugin, the group is privacy. This is the name. You want to use the component name here. That's the global privacy. Again, here is a description. These are the methods and properties that you want to select, and then you want to change the class header to actually look like that. So you can copy that out, and then having selected those methods and those properties, you would want to fill those methods with these snippets of code. So what that basically does is it moves the request of the plugin to your helper class of your component, which has a same name in the helper class as the one in the plugin. So you can see that those names are the same. Of course, we have this little method here because you might not want to use this feature, and then it needs to know that you didn't, and then it will just be like it doesn't exist. So we have, I'm gonna just scroll through this, and you can pause the video at any time and just type that out. Basically this and that is the same, and also that. And then the only thing we add is this request, this domain. We add this as well, so it basically passes the plugin itself to the helper class, and so does the request and the user, which comes from the function. Okay, so same goes with this last one, remove data, and you can also just enter these values in that method. That's really all you need to get this privacy plugin set up for your own use. There's of course more to it. This is just the first step. I usually in the script file area under pre-flight install add this little snippet. What it does is it checks that the component to which this plugin belongs is actually installed, and if it's not, then it gives the user a link to get the actual component. You can also use this if you like. You'll obviously need to use your own placeholders and make sure that it actually does take the user where they can get the component. So it checks that the component is installed and actually accessible. Now that's really all you need. So we'll just go out of here. We now have this component, or plugin rather, sorry. Now to get this plugin to actually be linked to a component is quite simple. You would go and select this component plugin button, and there simply select that that plugin, and what type of action you want this plugin to have. When you export a component like we do with JCB and other, you can export the plugin with the component like we've done in this case. Or you could say I only want this plugin to be part of the compiling event of this component, and that means now the plugin itself will not be exported. So if you want to give your component to someone, you can prevent the plugin from being exported with the component itself. This is very useful if you have a plugin you don't want to actually make available directly to someone else. You want to just use it internally or maybe sell it somewhere. So then this is what these features are primarily for. Okay, so this is one way to connect the plugin to this component. There is another way which I also would like to show you, and so to ensure it's not linked, I just clicked cancel there. So if we open it again, you'll see there's no plugin selected. So the demo package here doesn't have any plugin associated with it. Now at JCB we have recently decided to make some features available to pro members a year ahead of the community. So you can come here on the notice board. Currently there is a notice explaining this. I really hope you'll understand that this initiative is merely to give me more free time so I can, and others can join me in making JCB more successful. So currently I'm working on a few other features and even some not mentioned here, and these are the two, one of them now which we're busy looking at, this privacy suite, are the ones that are ready, available to the pro members. So everything I've showed you up to now is already public. That means if you knew enough, you could from here take over. You don't need to watch the video further. But if you need more help, and we're willing to give that, then you need access to this privacy suite integration plugin. Now you'll see here at the bottom, and we probably will add a tab soon enough with this information so that it'll always be easily available and not necessarily part of a notice. There is a pro member access for November, and there is a get the pro member password. So if you have a legitimate claim at pro membership, there are different means by which this membership is accessed. The most common path is basically just making a contribution, a donation, and so you can do that by going to this Join JCB Pro membership, and it will take you to a place called Open Collective where you can make a contribution. Once you've done that and we don't reach out to you maybe fast enough, because probably we can't get hold of you, your email maybe not accessible somehow, then you can make a claim here to get the key so that you can open this package. Because if you click onto this link now, it'll take you to Dropbox where it asks you for a password, and this is the password you need to get from us. Hopefully somehow we would still in the future be able to do this more automatically, so you won't need to come and ask for it, but at the moment this is where we're at. So once you have the key, you would enter it in here and then click continue. This would then open up this folder for November to you as a pro member. In this folder you would find 3 plugins, and you would want to download all of them and open this readme paper. I'm probably going to add this video to it and try and use this as a place for you to, see the flow of this implementation. And as you can see here, all the files in this folder will go public next year, 1st of November. So we've got reminders set, and all that will happen. The idea is we want to continue fostering this open source community, and at the same time we need your support financially. So once you got those plugins, you'd go to install them. The first one I would install is this privacy tab, and then the next one would be the actual extension, also the privacy extension, which would say extension Component Builder Privacy Compiler. So now that means you've got two plugins installed, and if you would go to your plugin area, you should see both of them are unpublished. This is the Content Component Builder Privacy tabs. You want to publish that. You could just click on Enable. That should do the trick. The other one is this Extension Compiler Privacy Extension Component Builder Privacy Compiler. This is the plugin that now maps into the compiler to integrate your component with this new privacy implementation. This you also need to enable. So now, having those two enabled, there are two more things to actually do to make this fully functional. First, you would go back to JCB and click on Options. This is the top right corner. Then in the Global tab, you'll find a place which says Active Compiler Plugins. At this point, you should see the one we've just activated available here, and you can then select it. Don't select any plugins which you're not sure is part of the JCB plugin for the compiler. It will just add extra weight to the compiler, which you really don't need. Then you can just save this area. Now we can go to the component itself. Now, because the way the privacy works in Joomla, it needs to identify table rows that are uniquely related to a user. So we added this feature that you can go to a specific admin view, and then you'll have a new tab in that admin view called Privacy. So there are different ways to go about doing that. You could go into the component, and then once it's fully loaded, you'll see that here's its admin view, and we can then open that admin view, and we'll see there's this new Privacy tab. So to integrate the plugin now, we need to activate this, because now we will basically map the behavior we want in terms of the integration. Now, if you did not have this plugin, you'll have to know how to write those helper classes in your helper methods. I always get this mixed up. In your helper class, how to write those helper methods which we found in the plugin, right? You could even not use the helper methods and just write the script right in the plugin. That's all up to you. The way I've got it set up here, if you got that plugin, which we did first, in place, then this area is going to use that plugin and integrate the privacy suite into your component quite powerfully. Now, there's one more thing, and remember I said you could link the plugin in a different way, and that is by selecting it here. Now you'd see it says select your global privacy plugin here. If you don't yet have a global privacy plugin, watch this tutorial. Now, as you can see, this link just takes you to my website. I'm not finished with the tutorial, I'm busy making it. And so this tutorial probably will end behind this link. And so then you could select your global. Now global means for all components. You'd select that plugin here. Now I'm going to turn this off for a moment just so you can see what happens. The moment we save this, and let me show you the other way to get to this, of course, is by the admin views directly going to that admin view. You don't need to go through the component. You see that that plugin selection tab no longer shows. And so what actually happened is if you go to plugins, oops, wrong one. You see if we go to the privacy tab, it has this plugin set. So you selecting it in that view basically updated this field. So it links to the correct global privacy plugin. That's the same description you saw in the tab earlier. Is this basically this area here? So I could have taken you here and have you just do it in the plugin. Then you would never have seen the plugin tab in the view, because you usually will only see it once. If you've set it, it's set, and this showing you it now is just me sort of, if you want to change it, you can come back here and change it. Now, going back to our admin view and opening that look view again, we want to now add that integration. So we're going to go back to the privacy tab, and now this time say yes, we want to activate this. Now you could read through these descriptions. I've tried to be explanatory as much as I could. If you think we could do better, please let me know. But basically, for example, should we use permissions where available? You see, when you export data, there are fields in JCB upon which you could add view, edit, and access permissions. Now, you might want to have this privacy suite integrated into your component, but you still want to have your end user, your client, to be able to determine whether certain values are actually allowed to be exported. And that means in their privacy terms, they would explain why those values can't be exported, and they can then simply use permissions, the same permissions to access those fields in any other way, would then just integrate with this plugin, and it's clearly a very advanced feature, and it's just a switch. You just say no or yes, and then that adds this feature to your plugin for this view. So every view is treated independently, whether it has to use this privacy permissional control or not. Now, next thing, sometimes you might want to have, instead of the data being deleted in a table, you might want to just anonymize the data so that you could still maybe use it anonymously. So the user's own information, which can make them connected to the data, is removed. Now, you as a developer, you will know which of those actual values needs to change. So if you want to say yes to anonymize, you're going to be asked to select the actual fields. Date of birth, that's a good one. Now we see here we have this random placeholder, but if you just leave the field blank, it will just empty the value. So, or you could give another. So we could say yes, all images must be anonymized, and mobile phone, and let's see, name probably, and email. So you see, you can now decide which are the field values that needs to be anonymized. So in this case, it's almost everything. But it could be different in other cases, like alias also, because it's derived from the name. And you could say, you know what, if the name is gone, the list view will be a little bit broken. So you could add this random word, just like that, in here. And then JCB would pick that up and actually generate an 8-digit value for that field when the data is removed. So that's what this random is there. Now we could probably add more like these, functions like these, as we go along, and so I hope that would happen. The next thing is, how does this data get linked to any user? So currently the most common way in which even Joomla connects articles to a user is just by the created by value. So if the user created the item, it belongs to him or her, and they have the right to therefore extract the value from the system or delete it. Now, there might be different ways to map it. Maybe you say no, it's not actually by the created by value, it's probably more by the email value. Now the problem though, if you want to do that, is that we're at this point we are validating this field to the user ID. So you can't use an email. In this case, you would need to use a custom implementation. Now, let's say you knew that, the name field is actually an ID field of the user ID who created the value, this input. Then you could have selected that. But since we can't, we need to do a custom instead. Now in custom, we are demonstrating to you what is the PHP string which we would have used to map to the created by value. So you see this is a normal query string. So we already have the query built. We're really doing a where. We're identifying the table row, column in the row, and we are using the user ID. This is a value that is on the page. If you now need to change this, you might need to use this value through some other function that you've written in your helper class to derive the name, you could say, or the email, to get the email value. You would then do this here. You would write your own custom code to correctly determine the email value via this user ID. Now, I am not going to go into the depths or the details of all that. If you really get stuck on this, then I would suggest you visit the forums, ask how to query a column based on a value, because this is PHP and you should know how to do this. Like I said in many tutorials, you need to know PHP to make the best use of JCB, and it's really an easy language to learn, especially if you've already got your hands on some JavaScript somewhere. Okay, so long story short, I have this other component which I have built where I use this script. Okay, so I have a column called member, and I can use the user ID on the member table of the core component, querying the user to get the member ID, which then returns the member ID, and in making sure it's not false and that the ID is numeric and that it is more than 0. I then pass the ID to map my table member value and thereby connect the user to this table. But also, if the user isn't linked to a member, then I don't want any values from this table to be extracted, because then that user has no value in the table. And so this is sort of how your custom code should look. And of course I'm using self because this code is going to run in the helper class of your component. So if you have other functions in your helper class, you would simply call them with the self string. Remember, the purpose of this code is to map this user ID to set its relationship to the table. It will draw all rows that map this relationship out. So if there's only one relationship, it will only draw one row. But if there are more than one, it will draw all of them as well. And so if you want that to be limited, you could add more queries. This query area is, you're basically in the middle of the query writing the code. So I hope that makes it even more powerful and useful to you. This is then mapping. Now in this instance we don't need to use this custom code. I'm going to use simply the created by to demonstrate the result. Now we would click save, and you'd see the data will remain available. You can come back and make changes, and your selection and data will show as it does now. Okay, so we're going to now go and compile this demo component and look at the result. First thing that you would notice is that it actually built a privacy demo plugin, and it is currently available for you to download. It shows you the paths, and you can go to this path and unzip the plugin before installing it to see what it's built. I'm going to click on the install and then take us to look at the actual code. It does happen at times that because the component itself is not yet installed, and we added that little validation script which first checks whether the component is installed, that it doesn't install the plugin. What to do then is just compile it again and install it, and then it will install. This is unfortunate. I'll probably have to look at that. It's what happened just now with me, and I didn't catch that on the clip, so I'm just explaining it here. Now we go to the plugin area, we'll see that there is some new plugin available here. Let me just get to it. Called Privacy Demo. You see it? That's the plugin it's just built. And if you open it, it gives you the details of your component's name and stuff, and you need to enable this for this plugin to actually be available, because this is what integrates your components with the Joomla Privacy Suite. So you need to give this plugin to users if you want them to have this functionality. Of course, the component can function without the plugin. The plugin is what makes the component integrate. Without the plugin, it simply will act like it would have done before the plugin was built. So now let's look at some of the code. So in the privacy suite here, privacy folder under plugins, we now see this new demo folder, and there's a bunch of scripts here. There are those scripts again, and you can open the main script here. Well, you could look at any of them, but you can see here is that code we showed you, and here is basically the same code you saw in the interface, the GUI, except that now it has the full component name, and it's basically calling the helper class of this component for this function with the information as we said. So let's go to the component then, demo and helpers, and open the helper class. Then what we can do is we can take this function, copy the name, go to the helper class and search for the name, and here we go. So here is the helper function that was built by JCB. We said that we wanted to use access and permissional structures, so it basically checks, does the user have access to the view, and does it have access to make use of the privacy. So it's added a new permissional switch in your component which checks whether the user has access to the privacy component of this view, which means if you are using this plugin in a privacy setting, you need to, in the component, not in the plugin, in the component, set this permission. And let me show you. So we're in the component now. We go to options and then we go to permissions, and you'll see as you scroll down there is this looks access. This is the one, and then looks privacy access and privacy delete. So you need to set these switches. Allow the user in this group to access their personal data in look via the Joomla privacy suite. This one, allow users in this group to remove their personal data. Now that's just a layer before we even get to the view itself. So the view is this looks, right? So we just now looked at the code which actually prevents them from going into this create look domain, which is the export request. There are others, right? We'll look at them. But first, now we got the create look domain and we start doing your normal run-of-the-mill things, and we basically are just getting the ID. We are using this area simply to retrieve the ID or IDs, and that script that was written, the custom one, it runs here, you see, and based on the create by. So at this point everything looks quite simple, but now in comes this get model, and in the get model we are literally pulling the looks model and we are executing get privacy export, and we're using the IDs from our result set as an input value, as well as the user which is making the request, which comes from here, right? There's the plugin, there's the user. So, and then we check whether we actually found any items. Now this get privacy export method is really where all the fun happens. This is where a lot of the permissional control structures are automatically built for you, and it just works out of the box. I could show this to you, but in this component we're not having that many permissional structures in place, so it wouldn't look that interesting. If you have a component with a lot of permissions on the fields, it'll be far more interesting. Then there are some values which of course are not really relevant. These values are removed by default. Heats, versions. So we basically drop those columns, and once done we simply add the item to the domain and we return the domain to the plugin, which then in turn hands it over to Joomla. So this is the privacy suite integration, looking only at the export request. Obviously there are a method for each of those methods we looked at in the plugin, and they're all automatically built by this privacy suite integration. Next up is the smart action log integration. So JCB has always added integration for the action log, but it's running on events which are not fully detailed. So it just sort of says table was checked out, table was checked in. It doesn't tell you much of what items was opened and stuff like that. That wasn't the real intent, and when I realized it, I started working on this action login integration, which you know now there is in Joomla this new user action log, and you can activate components to be tracked in this. There are different ways to do that. The one way is to actually write a plugin and then it gets done. The other way is to be integrated with Joomla in a way that sort of makes Joomla think you're part of the core components. This is what this logging integration does. It actually writes the necessary install scripts to integrate the component. Now what does that mean? Well, if you go to the action log area and you open options, you see that component builder is one of the components, and every other of these components are part of the core. So component builder is one of the actual components that we already ship with that integration in place. So if you were to check this, then from now on, everything, obviously if the action plugin in the system is activated, but everything that happens in the component builder, every area, who did what, when, all that will start being tracked and it will become part of the log. So this is what that integration will do. So let's set that up for demo as well. So the first thing for you to do here is to install that extra plugin that you got from Pro membership, which says extension component builder action log compiler. So this is really all you need to do. Then next is simply go to the plugin area and search for this extension and activate it. If you open it, nothing fancy, just enable. But again, this extension will only become functional if you go to component builder, open the options area, the global options, go to the global tab and select it here as one of the plugins you want to be available in the compiler. So you need to do that. Now from here on forward, every component you compile will have that feature. So to demonstrate that, you don't need to go and change anything at any component. You simply come here, compile it, and install it, and you're done. If we now go back to the action log area and open options, you'll now see that your component is also now one of those in the list. You can check it and save, and from here on forward it will again compile and track all the data. Now just to show you that this implementation is actually safe, we can uninstall our demo extension and go back to the action log, open options, and we'll see that that demo extension is also gone. So it will clear it out correctly and leaving no unnecessary values lying around. Well, thanks for watching. That is where we are currently at in terms of new Pro features. I hope to, every time as we release either improvements on existing ones or actually new ones, to make a video tutorial like this, show you how it works, and trust that you would have fun in using it in your projects. Until next time, take care. Bye.